Coach Victoria here, and today I'm going to walk you through how to do a successful beach start. When we think about beach starts, we think about just running and shoving the board in the water, but it actually starts from when you're actually standing on the sand, when you walk up to the race site, and what's in front of you. So today here, I'm on a sandy beach. I look at what I have. Is there any rocks? I look at my water. How deep is it? That's going to be the main concern when you're doing a beach start. Finding out how deep the water is going to allow your fin to clear, so that way you don't go and your board stays. And I'm sure we've seen plenty of people with pictures on how that happens, videos. It's always fun to watch, but it's never fun when it happens. So ideally, if you can, bring the board in the water to see how deep your fin is in the water. But what you're going to do is you're going to see, okay, I have no rocks, I have no obstructions, nothing that's going to hurt my feet. I have a clear path in front of me. I'm looking at the water here. There's no rocks, there's no shells in the water. Not just directly in front of you, but also a few feet out. As far as you can see out, are there any boulders sticking up? Are there any rocks? Take a walk out into the water. Feel with your feet what the ground feels like. It sounds silly now, but it's really important because you don't want to have cut feet. There's nothing worse than starting a race with cuts on your feet. So for me, I would take my board. I have a pretty long fin on my board, so I would walk in here, put it in, and I know that it's scraping still. Right there is about where I can place my board to start the beach start. So when I'm running, I can see here that the water is about mid-shin high on my leg, and that's where I know I'm safe to go ahead and launch the board without getting hung up on the fin. So that's step number one, is see your environment, look at the ground, and see how deep in the water you have to go. You're going to be in situations where there's going to be a trench in front of you, so it's going to start shallow, maybe a deeper trench, and then a sandbar. What happens in that case? A lot of times it's actually better to run with your board out to the second sandbar and then do your beach start. We've seen plenty of people where they do a beach start in the trench, hit the sandbar, have to jump off and do it again. So just knowing your environment is going to be really important for a successful beach start. Okay, so now that we kind of talked about the environment, we're going to go over your equipment for the beach start. Obviously, we always have our paddle. Most of us have our own board, but a lot of times when we're traveling or we're visiting people, we may rent a board. So it's really important to go over your setup on your board, what handles are available, and how you're going to hold it for the actual beach start. I have a dugout board. I prefer, since I have shorter arms, to hold my board with the center handle. Some people have handles set up on both rails where they actually hold it so it's square like this. Me, with my handle set up, I have to hold it like this so I can run. So knowing where your handle setup is and how you feel most comfortable is going to be important, because otherwise you're going to be running awkwardly into the water with your arms flailing all over the place, not knowing what to do. So getting used to how you're going to hold it, not only for the run, but then as you place the board, and we'll go over that in a minute, is going to help you propel forward the fastest. When we're getting ready to beach start, there's a couple of different things that happen. One is you're going to stand in the ready position on the dry land for the race to start. How you hold your board is going to be different in this position most of the time if you have a center handle than when you're placing the board in the water to go. If you're holding it sideways, which I'm sure people have seen, you're able to place it without having to turn the board, and I'll show you that in a second. Your paddle position, however, is determined before you go through that routine. So how is the best way you can position your paddle is going to be based on comfort. Some people choose to hold their paddle in the front of the board when they mount. Some people choose to hold their paddle on a diagonal on the board. The most important thing is, number one, to practice to see what works best for you. And number two, make sure you don't crush your fingers. When you are going to pick your paddle position, ideally you would just do it very slowly. Get your board in the water and put the paddle in a position to where if you were going to just step on and hop on, you would be able to have your paddle ready to go. So I can choose to put my paddle square with the board and hop on, or I can choose to have my paddle diagonal with the board and hop on. But now my handle's far up here. That may work for some of you, it may not. So it's important for you to test out different ways to hold your paddle so you're ready to go. The one thing you don't want to do is have to twist and turn your paddle after you stand up, because when you're going with the beach start, that paddle is going to be your brace and the only thing that's going to start your momentum forward. So paddle positioning while you're on the sand is step number one for positioning. So now that we know what position we're placing our paddle and we know how we're going to hold our board comfortably, how do we actually push off and get on our board? Now, in the case of my board, I have a dugout. With dugouts, you actually have to hop over the rail a little bit, or else you're going to bang your shin up. But with flat decks, you can easily hop on a lot more easy than with dugout. So just be cautious of the rails of your board and how you're going to get on the actual board. A good way to practice this in slow motion is to set the board in the ground, hold your paddle like you're going to normally hold it, as if you were going to do a beach start but not run, and simply push up and hop on and get ready. So the main goal when you hop on your board is going to be foot placement and then paddle placement. You want to make sure that you have the center of your board in between both legs as if you were standing normal. If you hop on the board and you put too much weight on one rail or the other as you're hopping on, you're going to probably go bloop and flip over. So you want to have even pressure when you're pushing down and forward, and you want to hop on as evenly as possible. So I don't want to hop on and put too much weight on my one side because I'm going to tip over. Alright, so a quick checklist before we go ahead and put it all together. Step number one, check your environment. Check the sand, check the rocks, check out in front of you what's in the water, how deep is the water, how deep do you need the water to be so your fin doesn't hit. Also, what kind of board do you have? Do you have a flat deck? Do you have a dugout? If you have a dugout, how are you going to put your feet on without hitting your shins? How are you going to hold your paddle? Are you going to hold it square? Are you going to hold it on a diagonal? What hand are you going to hold it in? What side is your strongest side when you first start paddling? That's the side you want the paddle to start on. After you launch, how fast can you get up? Keep your knees bent and start your stroke. So now we're going to go through the whole thing in fast motion so you can see what it looks like. With beach starts, when you're practicing, don't be scared to fall. Just expect to get wet. Try to keep your pressure even, push down and forward as you launch your board so that way you're evenly pressured on the rails. Center your feet around the center of your board so you're not on one side or the other and tipping over. And remember to propel forward because that's the whole point. So I'm going to go ahead and do a beach start so you can see, and hopefully I don't fall in. Here you can see I'm running with the board. I'm starting to shift it so it's flat as I approach the water. My paddle is getting in a diagonal position because that's how I like to hold my paddle when I'm out. I'm going to evenly place the board in the water, keeping the pressure even on both rails. Here you can see I put my hands down, moving my fingers out of the way so I don't squish them. My paddle is still diagonal. I'm going to hop over the rails, bloop bloop. In this case, I didn't land my feet exactly square with each other, but I do take a quick step up to get them in the position so I'm ready to go. Okay, so hopefully the video helped you guys today learn a little bit more about beach starts. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. I'm always here for you. And go out there and have fun, and don't be scared to get wet.